Investigating the raw footage hidden from reality. You are watching Bodycam Story Vault. Enter now.
Sir, is this your vehicle? We need to see some documentation.
Is there a problem?
We got a report of a vehicle matching this description being stolen. We need proof this belongs to you.
Stolen? Do you know who I am?
That's what someone driving a stolen car would say. Step away from the vehicle. Last warning, sir.
ICE Agent Derek Sloan, badge number 7834 with 7 years at the agency, sat in the Whole Foods parking lot on his day off and spotted Marcus Patterson, a black man in a navy blazer, loading groceries into a black Mercedes-Benz GLE. He nudged his partner and texted a friend. Bored in the suburbs. Gonna go fishing for illegals at Whole Foods LOL. 20 minutes later, he approached Patterson, accused him of driving a stolen vehicle, and demanded proof of ownership in a tone reserved for suspects, not shoppers. And when Patterson asked what stolen vehicle report they were acting on, Sloan couldn't produce one, because there wasn't one. He had walked past 6 white shoppers loading groceries into expensive cars and targeted the only black man in the lot. Agent Melissa Torres, badge number 8291 with 5 years at the agency, backed her partner completely, telling Patterson that someone driving a stolen car would claim to own it and ordering him to step away from the vehicle immediately. Neither agent knew that Patterson was Chief Marcus Patterson, 6 weeks into commanding the Riverside Police Department, 24-year law enforcement veteran, FBI National Academy graduate, recruited specifically to reform a department plagued by misconduct. When Patterson reached into his blazer and produced his chief's badge, both agents' faces drained of color. Store security cameras captured everything. The investigation would uncover 27 similar fishing expeditions over 3 years, text messages joking about catching illegals in the wild, and a pattern of racial targeting that supervisors had ignored until it landed on the wrong man in the wrong parking lot. 7 years federal prison for Sloan. 5 years for Torres. $7.2 million in settlement. And a police chief who proved that accountability doesn't take a day off, even when racist agents think they can. Before we continue, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Stories like this need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. Chief Marcus Patterson had been running on fumes for 6 weeks. The Riverside Police Department had recruited him specifically to fix what decades of misconduct had broken. Community trust shattered. Officer morale depleted. A consent decree looming if meaningful reform didn't materialize. He had moved his family across California for this job. Left Oakland, where he had commanded the homicide division with a 78% clearance rate, highest in department history. Left the city where he had built his career from patrol officer to deputy chief over 24 years. Riverside needed someone who understood reform. Patterson understood it. His wife Keisha had insisted he take Saturday morning off. First real break in 6 weeks. She was seeing patients at her pediatric clinic until noon. He decided to shop for a barbecue, their first time hosting the new neighbors since arriving. Whole Foods on Central Avenue. The simple pleasure of browsing without urgency. Steaks, fresh vegetables, craft beer, the ingredients for normalcy. He walked to his black Mercedes GLE in the parking lot, opened the trunk, started loading bags. 2 rows over, Derek Sloan sat in his personal vehicle with Melissa Torres. Off duty, killing time after their own shopping trip. Sloan spotted Patterson. Black man. Nice clothes. Expensive SUV. He nudged Torres. Watch this. He pulled out his phone and texted a friend. Bored in the suburbs. Gonna go fishing for illegals at Whole Foods LOL. Then he stepped out of the car. Torres followed. They walked across the lot. Past a white woman loading a BMW. Past a white man with a Range Rover. Past 3 other shoppers with expensive vehicles. They stopped at Patterson's Mercedes. Store security camera 7, mounted high on the building wall overlooking the lot, captured everything that followed. Wide angle. Clear resolution. Every face visible. Sloan stepped closer, hand resting on his belt. Sir, is this your vehicle? We need to see some documentation. Patterson looked up from his groceries. Grocery bag in hand. Mild confusion on his face. Is there a problem? Torres moved to flank position. We got a report of a vehicle matching this description being stolen. We need proof this belongs to you. Patterson set the bag down slowly. His expression shifted. 24 years of law enforcement instincts activating. Stolen? Do you know who I am? Sloan stepped closer. That's what someone driving a stolen car would say. Step away from the vehicle. Last warning, sir. Patterson didn't move from his position at the trunk. I asked you a question. Do you know who I am? Torres stepped forward, voice sharp. We don't care who you think you are. We're federal agents, and we're telling you to step away from the vehicle. Federal agents? Let me see your credentials. Sloane's jaw tightened. We don't have to show you anything. You're the one who needs to prove this car is yours. Patterson reached slowly into his blazer. Both agents tensed, hands moving toward their belts, bodies shifting into ready stances. He pulled out his wallet, flipped it open. The gold badge caught the afternoon light. Riverside Police Department. Chief of Police. I'm Chief Marcus Patterson. I run the police department in this city. I've been chief for 6 weeks. This is my car, my groceries, and my parking lot. He held the badge steady. Now let me see your badges. The blood drained from Sloane's face. The particular pallor of someone realizing they have made a catastrophic mistake. Torres took a half step backward. Chief of, we didn't know. You didn't know what? That a black man could be a police chief? That I might actually own this car? What exactly did you know when you walked over here? Sloane tried to recover. The defensive posture of someone scrambling for justification. Sir, we were just being cautious. There's been car thefts in the area. Really? What's the case number? Silence. Who reported it? Silence. What's the stolen vehicle description? Make, model, plate number. More silence. There is no report, is there? You saw a black man with a nice car and decided to play cop on your day off. A crowd had begun gathering. The particular magnetism of a confrontation in a public space. Several phones rose. Recording. An older white man, later identified as Robert Chun, retired attorney, approached from the adjacent parking row. I saw the whole thing. They walked right past 6 other people and went straight to you. Patterson nodded without breaking eye contact with the agents. Thank you, sir. I'll need your contact information for the report. Happy to provide it. This was wrong. Everyone here saw it. Other witnesses voiced agreement. The crowd growing. The documentation multiplying. Patterson pulled out his phone. Dispatch, this is Chief Patterson. I need 2 units to the Whole Foods parking lot on Central Avenue. I'm detaining 2 individuals who identified themselves as federal agents for harassment and potential civil rights violations. Sloane's composure cracked. You can't detain us. We're ICE. You're off duty. You had no probable cause. No warrant. No legitimate reason to approach me other than the color of my skin. He held Sloane's gaze. I can and I will. Torres's voice pitched toward panic. Look, we made a mistake. We're sorry. You'll have plenty of time to be sorry. Right now I want your IDs, your badge numbers, your supervisor's name, and you're going to stand right here until my officers arrive. Sloane and Torres exchanged glances. The unspoken communication of partners who had realized, simultaneously, that their careers were ending in a grocery store parking lot. In the distance, sirens began to wail. 7 minutes. That's how long it would take for 3 Riverside PD cruisers to arrive at their chief's location. Patterson waited. Calm. Patient. The discipline of someone who had spent 24 years building cases. The store security cameras continued recording. The witnesses continued filming. And 2 federal agents stood frozen in the afternoon sun, understanding for the first time what it felt like to be targeted by someone who knew the law. 3 Riverside PD cruisers pulled into the Whole Foods parking lot at 2:51 p.m. Lights flashing. The response to a call no one had expected. Their chief, in civilian clothes, detaining 2 federal agents. Lieutenant James Okonkwo stepped out of the lead vehicle. 15 years with Riverside PD. The officer Patterson had identified as his most reliable commander in 6 weeks of assessment. He approached the scene and took in the tableau. His chief by a Mercedes, 2 people in tactical gear, a crowd of witnesses with phones raised. Chief, what do we have here? Patterson's voice carried the calm authority of someone building a record. These 2 claimed to be ICE agents. Approached me while I was loading groceries. Accused me of stealing my own car. Demanded I prove ownership. Threatened to detain me. He paused. All without any probable cause other than my skin color. Okonkwo examined their credentials. ICE enforcement and removal operations. Los Angeles Field Office. Derek Sloan. Melissa Torres. Call their supervisor. I want to know if they were on duty. If they had any authorization to conduct enforcement in Riverside. And what supposed stolen vehicle report they were acting on. Okonkwo stepped away to make the call. Other officers secured the scene, taking witness statements, preserving the perimeter, documenting everything. The investigation began yielding answers within minutes. Off-duty. Both agents had been off-duty. No operational status. No authorization to conduct any enforcement activity. No stolen vehicle report. Riverside PD had no record of any stolen black Mercedes matching Patterson's vehicle. Neither did the California Highway Patrol database. Neither did the National Crime Information Center. No basis whatsoever for the stop. Okonkwo returned with the preliminary findings. Chief, they were off-duty. No authorization. No stolen vehicle report exists in any system. Patterson nodded. So they approached me, accused me of theft, and threatened detention, all based on nothing. That appears to be correct, sir. Patterson turned to Sloan. Your personal phone. I want it secured as evidence. You can't. I can secure evidence of potential criminal activity. Your communications leading up to this encounter are relevant to establishing intent and pattern of conduct. A Riverside officer collected the phones from both agents. The chain of custody began. Patterson addressed Okonkwo. Contact the FBI field office in Los Angeles. Civil Rights Division. I want this documented as a potential federal violation from the beginning. Yes, sir. Also contact DHS Inspector General. These agents' conduct needs internal investigation. Understood. Torres spoke for the first time since the cruisers arrived. This is being blown out of proportion. We made a mistake. You made a choice. You chose to approach me based on assumptions about what a black man should or shouldn't be driving. You chose to accuse me without evidence. You chose to threaten detention without authority. Patterson's voice remained level. Those choices have consequences. That's not proportion. That's accountability. The store security footage was preserved within the hour. Chain of custody established. Copies secured. Witness statements were collected. Robert Chun, the retired attorney. 5 additional shoppers who had observed the agents bypass multiple white customers. 2 Whole Foods employees who had seen the confrontation from the entrance. The text message was discovered that evening when Sloan's phone was examined pursuant to a search warrant. Bored in the suburbs. Gonna go fishing for illegals at Whole Foods LOL. Sent at 2:14 p.m. 20 minutes before the confrontation. The intent was documented. The pattern was about to be exposed. FBI Civil Rights Division opened their investigation within 72 hours. The store security footage had already gone viral. New police chief accused of stealing his own car played on every news channel. The footage showed Sloan and Torres walking past 6 white shoppers, bypassing 3 expensive vehicles driven by white owners, and targeting the single black man in the lot. The text messages revealed the methodology. Sloan to friend, 2:14 p.m. Bored in the suburbs. Gonna go fishing for illegals at Whole Foods LOL. Sloan to Torres, 2:18 p.m. Check out Mr. Mercedes over there. No way that's his car. Torres to Sloan, 2:19 p.m. Let's find out. I got your back. Post-incident communications completed the picture. Torres to personal contact, 3:47 p.m. We F*** it up. That was the actual chief of police. Sloan to colleague, for 12 p.m. I'm done. This guy is going to bury me. The investigation expanded beyond the single incident. Sloan's phone records and complaint history revealed a pattern spanning 3 years. 27 documented stops of minorities in affluent areas while off-duty. Shopping centers, parking lots, residential streets. Every target had been black or Hispanic. Every target had been approached near an expensive vehicle or nice home. None had resulted in any immigration enforcement, because none of the targets had been undocumented. They had been American citizens, legal residents, and professionals, targeted for nothing except their appearance in spaces Sloan believed they didn't belong. Text message history between Sloan and Torres documented their methodology. Catching illegals in the wild. 2 points for nice cars, 3 for gated communities. These people don't belong in Calabasas. Let's remind them. Another angry one. They always think they own the place. The agents had turned racial profiling into a game. Points for humiliation. Competition for confrontation. Torres had participated in 11 of Sloan's 27 stops. Her cooperation with investigators began within days. Self-preservation overriding partnership. Did you believe there was a stolen vehicle report? No. Did you suggest verifying before approaching? I mentioned it. Derek said it wasn't necessary.
Why did you participate? He was senior. I followed his lead. When Chief Patterson showed his badge, what did you think? I thought we were finished. The FBI analysis concluded that Sloan had operated a systematic pattern of discriminatory harassment for at least 3 years. His supervisors had received 4 prior complaints, all dismissed without investigation. The system had protected him until he targeted someone with the resources and authority to fight back. DHS Inspector General issued preliminary findings within 6 weeks. Policy violations. Conduct unbecoming. Unauthorized enforcement activity. Discriminatory targeting. The federal grand jury convened 8 weeks after the parking lot confrontation. Indictments. Civil rights violations. Deprivation of rights under color of law. Conspiracy. Harassment. Discriminatory enforcement.
Sloan.
Torres. Both agents who had gone fishing and caught consequences instead. The federal courtroom in Los Angeles drew national attention. A police chief accused of stealing his own groceries. The footage that had launched 1,000 think pieces now entered into evidence. Chief Marcus Patterson testified on the 3rd day. Full Riverside PD dress uniform. 24 years of service displayed through medals and insignia. I was shopping for a barbecue. First real day off in 6 weeks. Loading groceries into my car when Agent Sloan approached and demanded documentation. What was your response? I asked if there was a problem. Agent Torres claimed they had a report of a stolen vehicle. I asked what report. She couldn't answer. Why not? Because there was no report. They had no probable cause. No legitimate reason to approach me. What happened when you identified yourself as police chief? Both agents' demeanor changed immediately. They went from aggressive to frightened. Agent Torres said, "We didn't know." I asked, "Didn't know what?" That a black man could be a police chief? That I might own my own car? The security footage played. The jury watched Sloan and Torres walk past white shoppers. Watched them approach Patterson. Watched the confrontation escalate. That's what someone driving a stolen car would say. Step away from the vehicle. The text messages were displayed. Bored in the suburbs, gonna go fishing for illegals at Whole Foods, lol. No way that's his car. We F ***** ed up. That was the actual chief of police. Robert Chin testified as a civilian witness. Retired attorney. 71 years old. The man who had watched 2 agents bypass 6 white customers. I was loading my car 2 rows over. I saw them walk right past me, past the woman with the BMW, past the gentleman with the Range Rover. They went directly to the only black person in that section of the lot. Did Mr. Patterson appear to be doing anything suspicious? He was putting groceries in his trunk. That's all. The most ordinary thing in the world. The defense argued confusion. Off-duty mistake. Overzealous caution. The prosecutor's closing addressed each claim. Confusion doesn't explain walking past 6 white shoppers to target the 1 black man. Mistake doesn't explain text messages about fishing for illegals. Caution doesn't explain 27 similar incidents over 3 years, all targeting minorities, none resulting in any enforcement action.
She paused.
This wasn't confusion. This was discrimination. This wasn't a mistake. This was a pattern. And when it landed on a police chief instead of someone without resources, the truth finally came out. The jury deliberated 4 hours.
Guilty.
All counts.
Sloan. Guilty.
All counts. Torres. Sentencing followed 8 weeks later. Sloan. 7 years federal prison. Enhanced for pattern of conduct, leadership role, and documented discriminatory intent. Torres. 5 years. Participation in pattern despite opportunity to refuse. Both were led from the courtroom in handcuffs. The agents who had gone fishing discovered what it felt like to be caught. The civil settlement was announced 4 months after sentencing. The Department of Homeland Security agreed to pay $7.2 million rather than face a trial that would expose systemic failures across the Los Angeles field office. The amount reflected the pattern, not just one incident, but years of discriminatory conduct that supervisors had ignored. Chief Patterson announced the distribution at a press conference outside Riverside City Hall. I was recruited to reform the Riverside Police Department, to change a culture of misconduct that had eroded community trust. 6 weeks into that work, I was reminded why reform matters, because discrimination doesn't wear a single uniform. He announced the allocation. $3 million to establish the Patterson Center for Police Reform at UC Berkeley. Research on bias in law enforcement. Training programs for agencies pursuing cultural change. Resources for communities demanding accountability. $2 million to the Riverside Community Trust Foundation. Youth programs. Economic development. The investments that make policing easier by making communities stronger. $2.2 million to scholarships for students from Compton pursuing law enforcement careers. The next generation of officers from the neighborhood where Patterson had grown up, where his grandmother had worked as a housekeeper to put him through college. I don't need this money. What I need is change. What we all need is a system where no one, regardless of their profession, has to prove they belong in a parking lot. ICE's Los Angeles field office was placed under DOJ consent decree. 5 years of federal oversight. Mandatory bias training. Restrictions on off-duty conduct. Required documentation of all enforcement contacts. First supervisors who had dismissed prior complaints against Sloan were forced to resign. The chain of command that had enabled 3 years of discriminatory conduct was dismantled. California's legislature acted within the year. The Patterson Act, requiring documentation of all law enforcement stops, on duty or off, and establishing penalties for discriminatory enforcement. The bill passed with bipartisan support. The governor signed it on the steps of the Riverside Police Department. Chief Patterson came to Riverside to reform a department. Instead, he ended up reforming the entire state. Sometimes change comes from the people willing to stand in a parking lot and demand accountability. Patterson continued his work. The reform that had brought him to Riverside proceeded. Use of force complaints dropped 40% in his first year. Community approval ratings reached historic highs. The culture was changing. One parking lot confrontation at a time, the barbecue finally happened. 2 months late. The steaks Patterson had been buying when Sloan approached now replaced with fresh ones, same cuts, same Whole Foods, same parking lot. His wife Keisha had wanted to host it somewhere else. Anywhere else. The backyard of the rental they'd moved into 6 weeks before their lives became national news. This is our home now, Patterson had told her. We're not hiding from our own neighborhood. The guest list expanded beyond the neighbors they had originally planned to invite. Half the Riverside Police Department showed up. Officers who had watched their chief handle the confrontation with the discipline they aspired to. Commanders who had seen the footage and understood what it meant to lead by example.
Lieutenant Okonkwo brought his family. The officer who had responded to the call secured the evidence and helped build the case that would send 2 federal agents to prison. Robertson came, the retired attorney whose witness statement had corroborated everything the cameras captured. He brought a bottle of wine that cost more than the steaks. I've been practicing law for 40 years, he told Patterson. I've seen a lot of injustice. I've rarely seen someone handle it with such precision. 24 years of training, Patterson replied. Turns out it's useful even at grocery stores. His children had flown in for the occasion. Jasmine from UCLA, Marcus Jr. from Morehouse. His youngest, Brianna, was already there. The high school junior who had watched her father become a national symbol without ever losing his composure. Dad, were you scared? Patterson considered the question. The honesty his children deserved. Not scared. Angry. Frustrated. But I've learned that anger doesn't win cases. Evidence wins cases. Documentation wins cases. Keeping your head while someone else loses theirs, that wins cases. What if they hadn't believed you were the chief? Then the fight would have been longer. But it would have ended the same way. The cameras were rolling. The witnesses were watching. The truth was on my side. He looked at his daughter. That's what I want you to remember. The truth doesn't depend on who you are. It depends on what happened. My job was to make sure what happened was captured, documented, and impossible to deny. The barbecue lasted until sunset. Neighbors meeting officers. Officers meeting family. The community that Patterson had moved across California to serve, gathering in his backyard. His wife Keisha stood beside him as the last guest departed. 6 weeks, she said. We've been here 6 weeks, and you've already made national news, sent 2 federal agents to prison, and had a law named after you. Patterson smiled. I was just trying to buy steaks. You were trying to exist. In public. While black. In America. She took his hand. I'm proud of you. For keeping your head. For doing it right. For showing people what accountability looks like. The parking lot confrontation had lasted less than 20 minutes. The consequences would last for decades. Derek Sloan began serving his 7-year sentence at FCI Victorville. The facility sat 90 miles from the Whole Foods parking lot where his career had ended. Close enough to remember. Far enough to regret. His appeals were denied. His law enforcement certification was permanently revoked. His pension was forfeited under federal conviction statutes. Melissa Torres completed her 5 years at a women's facility in Dublin, California. Her cooperation had reduced her sentence, but couldn't restore what she had lost. Career destroyed. Reputation demolished. The partner who had said, "I got your back," had led her into federal prison. The 4 supervisors who had dismissed complaints against Sloan found new careers outside law enforcement. The consent decree required their removal. The system that had protected discriminatory conduct was dismantled. Chief Patterson's first year in Riverside exceeded every metric the city had hoped for. Use of force complaints down 40%. Community approval at historic highs. Officer retention improving after years of exodus. The reform he had been recruited to implement was working. The scholarships he had funded began producing results. First-generation college students from Compton, the neighborhood where Patterson had grown up, pursuing criminal justice degrees. Young people who saw law enforcement as a calling rather than an enemy. One scholarship recipient, a 20-year-old named Deshaun Williams, wrote Patterson a letter. Chief Patterson, I grew up 3 blocks from where you grew up. My grandmother worked as a housekeeper, just like yours. I watched the video of what happened to you 100 times. Not because of the racism. I've seen that my whole life. Because of how you handled it. You stayed calm. You knew the law. You built the case while it was happening. That's what I want to learn. That's what I want to be. Patterson invited Williams to Riverside for a ride along. Showed him what community policing looked like when done right. Answered questions about career paths, about education, about the long road from patrol officer to chief. 24 years, Patterson told him. That's how long it took me. Every rank. Every assignment. Every hard lesson. Was it worth it? Ask me again in another 24 years. But so far, yes. Every day. Williams enrolled in the criminal justice program at Cal State San Bernardino the following semester. Full scholarship from the Patterson Fund. The Compton kid who became a chief was creating more Compton kids who could become chiefs. Some legacies are measured in verdicts and settlements. Some are measured in the people who follow. The black Mercedes-Benz GLE sat in Chief Patterson's driveway. Same vehicle. Same model. Same car that Sloan had accused him of stealing. But the plates were different now. Chief MP. A gift from his officers. Custom plates they had pooled funds to purchase after the trial concluded. So no one ever makes the same mistake twice, Lieutenant Okonkwo had said at the presentation ceremony. Patterson had laughed. Then he had gotten emotional in a way he rarely allowed himself. You know what this means to me? It means you see me. Not as a symbol. Not as a headline. As your chief. Your colleague. Someone worth protecting. The same way I try to protect you. He drove the Mercedes to work every day. Parked it in the chief's spot at Riverside PD headquarters. The plates visible to everyone who entered the lot. A reminder. A statement. A promise. His second year as chief proceeded without incident. The reforms institutionalized. The culture shifting from defensive to accountable. The community trust that had been destroyed before his arrival, slowly rebuilding. He still shopped at Whole Foods. Same location. Same parking lot. The scene of the confrontation had become ordinary again. Just a place to buy groceries. Sometimes employees recognized him. Sometimes other shoppers nodded in acknowledgement. Mostly, he was just another customer loading bags into his car. That was the point. The case file remains in federal databases. Case number 2024 CR 01156. Subject: civil rights violations, deprivation of rights under color of law, discriminatory enforcement. Location: Whole Foods Market, Central Avenue, Riverside, California. Outcome: 2 convictions. 7 and 5 years respectively. 7.2 million settlement. Statewide legislation. Institutional reform. Principle established. Parking lots are not hunting grounds. Off-duty doesn't mean unaccountable. And some fish turn out to be sharks. Chief Marcus Patterson proved that principle the only way available. By standing next to his car. By producing his badge. By documenting everything. By continuing to reform. The plates say Chief MP now. The car is still black. The Mercedes still sits in his driveway in the Riverside neighborhood he moved to 6 weeks before everything changed. Some days he thinks about Sloan sitting in Victorville. About Torres in Dublin. About the careers that ended because 2 agents couldn't imagine a black man owning what he had earned. Some days he doesn't think about them at all. The work continues. The reform continues. The community he serves continues. 24 years in law enforcement taught him that. The parking lot just reminded everyone else.
Every historical record bears witness. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe to keep opening the vault.